Do you ever feel like you don't belong even in a house you clean every single day? Rosa whispered to herself, her hands trembling as she tucked in the corners of the billionaire's silk sheets. She wasn't talking to anyone in particular, maybe to the silence, maybe to the shadows of the vast bedroom, but her voice carried a weight, heavy and soft at the same time, like you're invisible and yet somehow you notice everything others try to hide. She paused, glancing toward the window where the golden light of evening streamed in, illuminating dust motes that looked almost like tiny secrets floating in the air. She shook her head and forced a small laugh, bitter and quiet. But maybe invisible people aren't meant to see the truth. Her words faded as the sound of footsteps approached. The door creaked open, and Daniel, the billionaire's only son, peeked his head in. He was tall, with eyes too sharp for his own age, carrying the weight of someone who had been forced to grow up too fast. "Rosa," he said softly, "you talk to yourself too much." She turned quickly, embarrassed, her cheeks warming. "And you listen too much, Daniel. Don't you know it's rude?" A rare smile tugged at the boy's lips. "You're the only one in this house who talks to me like I'm normal, not like some broken glass everyone's afraid to touch." His voice cracked slightly. Her face softened. "You're not broken, Daniel. Just bruised." Silence lingered between them for a moment, before Daniel shifted his gaze to the bed she was fixing. "My father said you're not supposed to be in here when he's away. But you always come. Why?" Rosa hesitated, her hands pausing over the blanket. "Because sometimes the rooms people leave behind speak louder than the people themselves. And maybe I just don't want you to feel alone in this big house." Daniel looked down, his throat tight. "I always feel alone, even when he's here." Her chest ached at his words, but she only nodded, hiding her emotions. She turned back to the bed, tucking in the sheets, when something caught the corner of her. Something wedged beneath. The bed frame. A thin edge of paper, worn and yellowed, just barely sticking out. Her heart skipped. She hesitated, then slowly bent down and pulled it free. It was an envelope, old, creased and sealed with a faded red wax stamp. There was no dust on it, as though it had been carefully placed there, deliberately hidden. "Rosa?" Daniel's voice broke the silence, his eyes narrowing. "What is that?" She swallowed, her fingers trembling as she turned the envelope over. The name scrawled on the front was unmistakable. Elias Montgomery. The billionaire's full name. "Your father's," she whispered. Daniel stepped closer, his eyes widening. "Why is it under the bed?" "He never hides things. He locks everything in his office safe." His voice caught. "That looks important." Rosa's chest tightened. She wanted to put it back, to pretend she hadn't seen it, but the weight of the envelope in her hands felt heavier than paper. It felt like a confession, like a wound. She looked at Daniel, his young face twisted with curiosity and fear. Maybe we shouldn't open it," he interrupted sharply, his voice urgent. "Please, Rosa, open it." Her breath hitched. "Daniel, this isn't ours. It's your father's." Daniel's voice dropped, trembling. "Everything in this house is his, even me. And he never tells me anything. If that letter's a secret, I deserve to know it, don't I?" Her eyes searched his, torn between duty and the silent ache of the boy standing before her. Finally, with a shaking hand, she slid her finger beneath the wax seal. It cracked softly, like the sound of a heart breaking. The paper inside was delicate, handwritten in ink that had faded over time. Rosa unfolded it slowly, her eyes scanning the first lines. Her lips parted, her breath shallow. "What does it say?" Daniel demanded, stepping closer. She hesitated, her voice quiet, trembling as she read aloud. "To my son, if you are reading this, then the truth I could never say aloud has found its way into your hands. Forgive me, but I built this empire on a choice that still haunts me, a choice I made long before you were born." Rosa stopped, her throat tightening. She glanced at Daniel, whose face had gone pale. "Keep reading," he whispered, his voice raw. Her hands shook as she continued. "There was once a man I called my brother, not by blood, but by bond. We built everything together, dreamed together. But when the time came to choose between loyalty and ambition, I betrayed him. I took what was his and made it mine, and the cost of my choice was not only his ruin, but the silence of a woman I once loved. The room went still. Rosa's chest ached as she read the final line of the page. If I could undo one thing, it would not be the money nor the empire, but the way I buried their lives so I could build mine. Her voice faltered, and she lowered the paper slowly. Daniel's face was frozen, disbelief etched in every feature. He betrayed someone? A friend? And a woman? His voice broke. My father? Rosa wanted to speak, to soften the blow, but the truth was already alive in Daniel's trembling hands. The door suddenly creaked open again, and Elias Montgomery himself entered the room. Tall, commanding, with a presence that filled the air before he spoke. His eyes landed on the envelope in Rosa's hands. What? His voice thundered, low and dangerous. Are you doing with that? Rosa froze, her chest tightening. Daniel turned sharply toward his father, his voice fierce for the first time. Why was it under your bed, father? What is this letter? Elias's jaw clenched, his eyes darkening. For a long moment, silence pressed down on the room. Then, with a voice colder than stone, he said, That letter was never meant to be read. Rosa's hands shook, but she met his gaze, her voice trembling yet firm. Secrets have a way of finding light, sir, especially when they've been hidden for too long. Elias's expression cracked, just for a moment, revealing something beneath the steel. Pain, regret, perhaps even shame. He closed his eyes briefly, then opened them, his voice hoarse. Put it back. Neither of you understands what that letter means. Daniel's voice trembled, filled with both fear and defiance. Then tell us, Father. For once, just tell us the truth. The silence that followed was thick, suffocating, alive with tension. Elias's hands curled into fists, his eyes flickering between the maid who dared to hold his secret and the son who demanded his honesty. And in that silence, the world inside that room began to shift forever. The silence in the bedroom hung so heavy, it felt like the walls themselves were listening. Elias Montgomery stood tall, but his shoulders carried the weight of decades. Rosa still held the letter, her knuckles white around the fragile paper, while Daniel's young face burned with a fire his father had never seen before. Truth? Elias finally said, his voice like gravel, low and cold. The truth is poison. That letter should have never been found. Daniel's chest heaved. You lied to me my entire life. You walk around this house like some unshakable king, but all this time you were hiding behind a betrayal. You ruined someone's life, and you thought I'd never find out. Elias's jaw clenched, his eyes darkening as if trying to summon back the authority that once silenced everyone. But Daniel didn't flinch. For the first time, the boy looked like he could shatter the silence himself. Rosa took a small step forward, her voice quiet but firm. Mr. Montgomery, sometimes poison doesn't kill. Sometimes it heals if you let it out. Maybe it's time Daniel knows. Elias's gaze shot toward her, sharp as a blade. Stay out of this. You are a maid. You are nothing in this house. Rosa flinched but didn't lower her eyes. If I am nothing, then why did I find the letter you buried under your bed, not in your safe? Her words trembled but carried strength. You wanted it to be found, sir. Maybe not by me, but by someone. For a second, Elias's mask cracked. His breath hitched. His eyes flickered toward Daniel, and in them, something raw surfaced. Fear. Daniel's voice trembled. Who was she? The woman you wrote about? Elias's chest rose and fell, his silence louder than thunder. His lips pressed together as though every word threatened to unravel him. Rosa's voice softened. If you don't tell him, the silence will destroy him more than the truth ever could. Elias turned away, walking to the window, his hands gripping the sill so tightly his knuckles turned white. The city stretched below in a sea of golden lights, but his eyes didn't see it. His mind was trapped in another time. Finally, his voice broke through, hoarse and trembling. Her name was Anna. She was everything I ever wanted and everything I could never deserve. She loved someone else, someone I once called my brother. His name was Thomas. Daniel froze. Thomas? Elias nodded slowly. We built the company together. He was brilliant, fearless, loyal, and I— His voice cracked, and he pressed his hand against the glass. I stole what was his share of the business, his future. And by the time Anna realized what I had done, it was too late. She stayed silent, but her silence was louder than any curse. The words fell like stones into the room. Daniel staggered back, his throat tight. So all of this— He gestured around the luxurious room, the towering house, the empire. All of this came from betrayal. Elias turned, his eyes red but unyielding. From betrayal, yes. From ambition that consumed everything else. And I've spent every day since wondering if any of it was worth the cost. Rosa's heart ached as she looked at Daniel's trembling hands. The boy's world was crumbling, his image of his father shattering piece by piece. Daniel's voice broke. You could have told me. You could have told me years ago. But instead, you made me believe we were perfect. That everything about this family was untouchable. Elias's voice hardened again, though it shook with hidden cracks. Because weakness destroys empires, I wanted you to be strong, to never look back. Daniel's eyes filled with tears, and his words spilled out like fire. Strong doesn't mean heartless. Do you even hear yourself? You've been living with ghosts, and you buried them so deep you thought they'd never rise. But now they're here, and they're not leaving. Elias's chest heaved. His lips parted, but no words came. For the first time, he looked smaller, human. Rosa placed the letter gently on the nightstand, stepping back as if giving father and son space. But her eyes stayed on Daniel. She knew what silence could do to a young heart. She'd lived through it herself. Daniel's voice softened, but still trembled. Where is he now? Thomas. What happened to him? Elias swallowed hard, his voice little more than a whisper. Gone. Disappeared after the betrayal. No one's heard from him in years. Some say he died. Some say he started over under another name. But I've never seen him again. The words broke something inside Daniel. He lowered his head, his fists clenched. So you built this empire on ruins? Elias's breath shook. Yes, the silence that followed was unbearable. The kind that made hearts race and throats ache. Finally, Rosa's voice broke it, gentle but steady. Maybe it's not too late. Elias turned toward her sharply. Too late for what? For kindness, she said simply. For honesty, for redemption. You've been carrying this secret like a stone in your chest. But maybe it was meant to be found. Maybe it was meant to change something, not destroy it. Elias's face hardened, but Rosa could see the storm behind his eyes. Daniel's gaze shifted between them, his young heart desperate for something, anything that could bring light into the darkness. Father, Daniel's voice cracked. Tell me at least this. Did you ever regret it? Elias froze. His throat worked as though the words were lodged deep. His eyes glistened, but his voice came out firm, almost defiant. Every single day, Daniel's breath hitched. For the first time, he saw his father not as a giant, not as a tyrant, but as a man, flawed, broken, and trapped in his own choices. The air in the room felt different now, heavy yet strangely fragile, as if one more word could either mend something or break it forever. Elias stepped closer to his son, his voice softer than it had ever been. Daniel, I built this empire for you, so you would never know hunger, never know weakness. But I realize now, in protecting you from struggle, I may have stolen something greater. The truth. Daniel's eyes brimmed with tears. I don't want your empire if it's built on lies. I just wanted a father who trusted me enough to tell me who he really is. The words sliced through Elias's chest. He opened his mouth, but before he could answer, Rosa spoke gently, her voice carrying the weight of wisdom born from pain. Empires fall, Mr. Montgomery, but love doesn't have to. You still have a chance to give Daniel something worth more than money. Something that can't be built on betrayal. Elias looked at her, then at his son. For the first time in decades, he had no defense, no armor. Just silence and the crushing truth that the empire he built could not protect him from the eyes of his own child. The letter still lay on the nightstand, its words alive, breathing and reshaping everything in that house. And though no one said it aloud, all three of them knew. The secret had only just begun to change everything. The night settled heavy over the Montgomery estate. But inside the walls of the mansion, sleep felt impossible. Daniel sat at the edge of his bed, staring at the floor, his mind a hurricane of betrayal and questions. Rosa sat nearby, her hands folded in her lap, watching him with quiet worry. He broke the silence first, his voice fragile. Do you think people can really change? Rosa tilted her head, her voice gentle. I've seen people who lost everything find kindness in the smallest things. I've seen anger melt into forgiveness when someone chose to reach out instead of turn away. Change is never easy, Daniel. But yes, I believe they can. Daniel's throat tightened. Then I hope my father can. At that moment, footsteps echoed down the hall. Elias entered, no longer carrying the aura of the untouchable billionaire. His suit jacket was gone, his tie undone, his face pale and hollow, as though the weight of the secret had stripped away his armor. Daniel, Elias began, his voice trembling. We need to talk. Daniel looked up sharply, his jaw tight. Why now? After years of silence? After hiding everything? What could you possibly say? Elias walked closer, each step deliberate, as if forcing himself forward. Because tonight, when Rosa read that letter aloud, I realized something. I've been living as a prisoner of my own choices. I thought silence kept me strong, but silence only made me weak, and it made me lose the one thing I cannot replace, you. Daniel's lips parted, shock flickering across his face. I betrayed Thomas. I betrayed Anna. I built an empire, yes, but in doing so, I buried the man I was supposed to be. Elias's voice broke. He turned his gaze to Rosa. And it took a maid, someone I dismissed, someone I thought invisible, to force me to see it. You may think you are nothing, Rosa, but you are the only one who had the courage to bring truth back into this house. Rosa's eyes glistened, but she stayed quiet, her hands tightening around each other. Daniel's voice cracked. And now what? You can't undo what you did. Thomas is gone. Anna is gone. Nothing can change that. Elias's eyes filled with tears he had buried for decades. No, I can't undo it, but I can honor them. I can give back what I stole. Every piece of this empire has their fingerprints on it, not just mine. And I will make it known. I will make it right, Daniel, not just for them, but for you. So that when you inherit all of this, you don't inherit the shame that has chained me for years. Daniel's breath hitched, the weight of his father's words piercing his chest. How do I believe you? How do I trust you again? Elias fell to one knee in front of his son, something Daniel had never witnessed before. The man who ruled boardrooms, who crushed opponents, now knelt like a father stripped of all pride. You don't have to trust me today, Elias whispered. Let me earn it. Let me show you, not with words, but with actions, that I can be better. For once, Let me put truth before ambition." The room fell silent, the kind of silence that felt like a choice waiting to be made. Daniel stared at his father, his heart torn between anger and the faint flicker of hope that maybe, just maybe, the man before him could change. Finally, Daniel's voice, shaky but strong, filled the air. "Then prove it. Show me you're not just the man from that letter. Show me you can be more." Elias nodded, tears slipping down his face. "I will." Rosa stood, her voice steady but filled with quiet fire. "Mr. Montgomery, there's something I've learned working in houses like this. Wealth can buy silence, but only kindness leaves echoes. Tonight, you chose to let the silence break. Don't waste that choice." Elias looked at her, truly looked at her for the first time, not as a maid, but as the voice that had saved him from drowning in his own secrets. "You're right," he said softly, "and I owe you more than I can repay." Rosa shook her head. "Don't repay me. Repay the people you hurt. Repay Daniel with honesty. Repay yourself by finally forgiving the man you used to be." The weight of her words settled into the room, weaving themselves into the cracks of their broken hearts. For the first time in years, Daniel saw his father differently, not as the untouchable billionaire, not as the liar behind the empire, but as a flawed man trying to stand up again. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough for now. As dawn's first light crept through the curtains, Elias turned to the window, his voice soft. "When the sun rises, I'll make the call. We'll track down Thomas's family if they still exist. We'll set things right. No more secrets." Daniel exhaled, his shoulders trembling. "Then maybe we still have a chance." Rosa smiled faintly, her eyes warm. "It's never too late for a second chance." And for the first time in that house, the silence didn't feel suffocating. It felt like healing. The letter lay on the nightstand still, but now, instead of a burden, it felt like a key that had opened a door no one could close again. Because sometimes the most dangerous secrets aren't the ones we hide from the world, but the ones we hide from ourselves. And when they finally surface, they don't just destroy, they rebuild. So the maid's discovery didn't just change everything, it saved everything. And in the end, that was the secret worth keeping. Because the truth, once spoken, can turn even betrayal into redemption. Think of it like carrying a heavy box up the stairs every single day. At first, you think you're strong enough, that no one notices the weight on your back. But one day, someone stops you, takes off the box, and you realize you could finally breathe. That's what truth does. It takes away the weight silence forces you to carry. Never underestimate the power of truth. It can break hearts, yes, but it can also set them free. And to everyone watching this, if this story touched you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, Black Saga. Drop a comment about what part spoke to you most, and share this video with someone who might need this reminder today.